Hello everybody. So we're going to be working on our next step of our watercolor gradient landscape piece. So when we left off, we had done our masking tape border, about a 1/2 inch on every side of our paper. We had chosen a location for our sun or moon, making sure it's not in the middle. And then we had used our resist technique onto our sun or moon. That way it would remain white after we finished our gradient. And then we did our gradient. I used cool colors. You could use warm colors, you could use primary colors, secondary colors, analogous colors, monochromatic color scheme, whatever you want. I just did cool colors because I really like them. I don't know, they just kind of fit my style. So what we're going to do now is, after we have this sort of basic gradient with some wet on wet techniques, is we're going to be finalizing our gradient. So with what you did already, you might not be totally happy with it. Like, I kind of wish I had a little bit more of this blue-green color, maybe a little more purples, kind of bring the purple down into the green more. I don't know. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with glazing. And if you are happy with the colors in your gradient, you might not have to do that. That's fine. But if you're not happy, I'm going to try and help you fix it. So I want to start by making a little more of this kind of blue-green color down in here. So I'm going to start by taking my brush. Which one do I want? My brush into my water. Put that in the palette. Take my water, put it into the palette. And then I'm going to take my green, because the green's a lighter color. And when you're mixing two colors together, you want to start with your lighter color and then add a little bit of darker color to it. If I was to start with my blue and add a little bit of green, I would have to add a bunch of green to try and get it that blue-green color. Whereas if I start with the green, I only have to add a little bit of blue. So in the long run, you're kind of saving yourself some time, some money. You don't have to spend all your watercolors. So then I'm wiping my brush off. I'm going to move these other brushes because they are in my way. So cleaning my brush off, getting out some of the water. I'm going to dip it into the blue. Get some blue in my palette. Then I'm going to mix that together. This brush actually might be too big. I'm going to go to a slightly smaller one. Let's see, I have this one. Pick up the blue pigment, put it in the green. I think I'm just going to use all of that blue into that green pigment there. So then I'm going to do what we did on our watercolor techniques paper. I'm going to do what's called glazing. So that is when you can do this with two different colors, you can do this with the same color. But once your original wash has dried, you can take your second color and paint over it. And what's called glazing, it can either mix two colors, like here I mixed blue and red and made purple, or you can make the color darker. So I'm going to take my brush, put it in that blue-green, and I'm going to go in and try and add a little bit of blue-green down in here. So there I'm kind of darkening it up, adding a little bit more green. My gradient now isn't quite perfect. That's okay. Especially because I know I'm going to do some sort of landscape scene down in here. So it's fine that this isn't perfect. I'm going to go in with a little bit of water, kind of brush that edge out a little bit. Okay, so there with that glazing, I'm pretty happy with my blue-green. Actually, I'm going to add some more to the bottom. Ooh, here we go. That way this green is kind of darker in comparison to that blue-green. Okay, that's pretty good. So I've done glazing of the blue-green onto both the blue-green and onto the green. I think I'm also gonna go in and add more purple to the top of my paper because I kind of want it to be darker. So I'm actually gonna flip this around because it's not taped down anymore. Going to clean my brush off very well. Move my big brush, clean my brush off. Add some water to my palette. And then I'm going to take some of that purple and add it to the water. Purple, putting it in the water. That looks, I don't know, good enough. It doesn't really matter because it's going to be a glaze. So even though I want this purple to be darker, this purple doesn't necessarily have to be darker because I'm going to be adding the two together. So I should probably brush off my salt. Should have done that first, that's okay. Oh, it's dripping everywhere. Okay, I'm gonna go in and do a little bit of a glaze with that purple. That way I can kind of darken up my sky. I wanted a little bit more of a distinction between the night sky and the regular sky and the bottom half. That will be whatever I want it to be. Haven't quite decided that yet. There, putting more purple into my palette, glazing the purple down farther onto the page. And then I'm gonna take, I'll put it down past the moon. I'm gonna clean my brush off and use that clean brush with water to kind of fan it out a little bit and eliminate that harsh line. So now that I've done this glazing technique to kind of darken up some colors, actually I think that's all I did. I darkened up this color, kind of added more to that color. I'm also going to be doing a little bit more of the salt because I want to, as I extended the purple of the sky down, I also want to extend the salt so that my stars kind of go farther down into my landscape. Just kind of add it randomly. You might not want to add as much if you want kind of those stars scattered, but I really like the look when it's just very much bunched up in the sky. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Perfect. I used that entire packet of salt. So after we did this glazing technique, what we want to do is we want to wait for it to dry. And then once it dries, or kind of mostly dries, I'm gonna go ahead and take the resist off of my moon. Now, not all of you might have a resist on your moon, but for those of you that do, now's when we're gonna take it off. If you used the rubber cement, which I don't think any of you have, you would take it off now. And then if you used the masking tape, you would take it off now. If you have the white crayon, you're kind of out of luck because you can't really take that off. So if you used white crayon, you're just gonna be stuck with your moon exactly how it is, which is fine. You just don't have the opportunity to kind of paint over the moon and add details over the moon, which is totally fine. You might not even want to do that. So let's see. I'm gonna flip it back around. Let's see how dry it is. Okay, so my bottom section there is pretty dry, which is good. Since I was only doing that kind of light glaze, it shouldn't have gotten too wet. This purple, on the other hand, might still be a little wet. So what I'm doing is I'm going to remove the resist. It's a lot easier if you're using masking tape. If you're using masking tape, you can kind of just peel the pieces up, but it's a little bit more difficult if you're using rubber cement. So what I usually do is I usually go in with an eraser and try and get it started. Because there I can kind of rub it up a little bit. Let's see if I can peel it. Maybe, maybe not. You also want to make sure that your paint is dry, because if you can see on mine, since I'm rushing it a little bit, the purple and blue that remained on the resist can kind of end up in the white of your moon just because you're kind of rubbing everything around, which you want to try and avoid. So it's ideal to wait till everything dries. Let's see. I'm kind of starting in the center of my moon, that way I can give the outside a little bit of drying time if it needs it. Okay, so I think I got all of my resist off, more or less. It'll be significantly easier if you're using masking tape or white crayon, but that's okay. I use rubber cement because I had it, and I wanted to show you guys something different that you might not have. So that's all you have to do next. Just finalize your gradient, which might require glazing. You might want to add on more water to do a different wet on wet technique. That's kind of what I did with the glaze up here. I added another glaze, made this purple a little bit wetter, and then I went in and added some stars. So once you do that, our next step is we're going to be working on the landscape itself, but that's for another video. So bye.